Hi everyone, I'm Rini, and I work in Work Package 3, and specifically on the legislative framework of these nutrient recovery technologies. So what do? We are trying to identify and evaluate the legal and regulatory frameworks in the pilot and follow regions of P2Green. Understanding the frameworks and complying to them is very important to be able to upscale the technologies into something commercial. The regulatory frameworks in the European Union and the national rules are intertwined and pretty complex, so we understand it's a bit challenging to understand and comply. So who is working on that? We are a team of regulatory affairs professionals like myself. I work at SustChem consulting company in Greece, and legal academics. They're from the universities of Ireland. We all have expertise on the relevant frameworks of fertilizers, waste, environmental law, trade, and more. And we also have other partners in Work Package 3 that are more than qualified to provide help in this topic. So how do we achieve our aim of legislative framework mapping? We have completed a scoping review that is describing the status of the legislative framework, and it allowed us to document and analyze key EU regulations mainly and policies that are relevant to our project activities. And we identified legislative grey zones, gaps and barriers that need to be addressed at EU level. Coming up, we have a final report, a final legislative report that will build on the scoping review and develop further EU aspects and also frameworks at national level of our pilot and follow regions. Its aim is to offer guidance on needed legislative changes that would facilitate both pilot and follow regions on the implementation of circular solutions. So this is a very brief and simplistic overview of the materials that are being used in P2Green. We have urine, yellow water and feces that are treated to produce fertilizers, and also municipal wastewater that is reclaimed to produce irrigation water that is nutrient enriched. A very important question is if these human excreta are waste or not waste. It's important because it concerns the permitting of the treatment facilities, the transport of the materials, the authorization of the products, and more. We have the Waste Framework Directive, which sets the basic concepts and definitions related to waste management, including definitions of waste, recycling, and recovery. It also explains when waste ceases to be waste and how to distinguish between waste and byproducts. According to this directive, urine and feces that are found within the wastewater are exempted as long as they are covered by the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive. Now, the Urban Directive is about the collection and treatment of urban wastewater before it is being discharged into the water bodies. Both are directives, which means that they provide an overarching concept, but they need to be nationally implemented by each member state. Now, the P2Green materials are collected at source, so they do not enter the sewage system. And in some cases, they're not flushed, so they're not mixed with water. So these 2 points are not clearly covered in the mentioned directives, and that's a bit of an issue. So it is pretty clear to us that any liquid or solids that are found in wastewater are subject to the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive. Feces that are collected separately, so they do not enter into the sewage system, seem to be subject to Waste Framework Directive, although in Germany it seems that everything is considered wastewater. Less clear situations are for the mixed urine and feces, the urine and the flushed urine that are all collected separately. We consider that they may be subject to the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive, although it's not at all clear. For example, in France, urine collected separately is not considered wastewater. So as a conclusion, the EU framework for these specific streams is not crystal clear. Further communications are needed at EU level and national level as well, because we already said that these directives are nationally implemented and member states could have a different interpretation of these streams. And this brings us to another important question, is that can a business rely on the approach each member state may have? Because different member states may have different interpretations and different requirements might apply. A final important question is that these excreta are treated to produce products. Do they remain waste post-treatment, or can we say that they're not longer waste and they're something else? And we will delve into that in our final legislative report. Now, these streams are treated to produce fertilizing products. Let's see this framework. There is a fertilizing products regulation, which is quite new. If a product follows the specifications of this regulation, can bear the CE mark on its packaging and can freely move inside the European Union. The regulation defines very specific categories and very strict requirements. For example, every ingredient in the product must meet the specifications of one out of the 15 component material categories. Each category lists allowed and prohibited materials and processes. Of course, for these products, other regulations apply as well, regulations for chemicals, for animal byproducts, the REACH regulation, etc. Can these excreta-derived products be CE marked? Well, human urine and feces as is are not included as a component material category or as an input material in a component material category. Some CMCs include certain types of waste. For example, if an ingredient is considered a precipitated phosphate salt, then it could originate from wastewater coming from municipal wastewater treatment plants or bio-waste. But the specific materials in P2 Green are not included. We aim to form a proposal for the inclusion of a new component material category encompassing human excreta. And in fact, there is an ongoing technical study to support the inclusion of new materials under the FPR by the NMI Institute that is considering human excreta. So this is very important. The fertilizing product regulation entails optional harmonization, although it is a regulation. So fertilizing products can still be marketed under the national rules of each member state. So if a company doesn't want or can't follow the FPR, then it can authorize the product locally in a member state and can only market this product in this member state. Then, if they want to market the product in other member states as well, they can follow the mutual recognition principle. It is a regulation that makes sure that EU countries accept products legally marketed in another EU country. It sounds very good, but it's not so simple, because some member states can reject the marketing of authorized products in their territory due to protection of the human health and the environment. And also each member state has its own procedure for mutual recognition, which can be simple or not so simple. And the not so simple procedures is like authorizing the product from scratch. So it's not so simple. Is it easy to get this type of human excreta-derived products authorized nationally in the member states? Some member states find this type of products complicated and are a bit skeptical, so it's possible that additional data will be requested. In other member states, it's more accepted. For example, in Austria, we have already authorized such product, the product Auri. In Greece, there is not a clear exception of these materials, but the expert committee of the respective ministry must examine the dossier to have an opinion on that. And in Hungary, we have made some initial discussions, but they are not really interested in this type of products. And we already said that typically you can follow mutual recognition to authorize such products in other member states. Again, it is in some countries it's easy, in some countries it's not easy, like Greece and Hungary, which are pretty strict with this procedure. I said before that we have another case of municipal wastewater that is being treated to produce reclaimed water for use in agriculture. And this case is pretty straightforward. So there is the water reuse regulation. Its aim is to make the use of treated wastewater to irrigate crops safe and accessible to farmers. Urban wastewater is first treated according to the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive to produce treated urban wastewater, and then it is further treated according to the water reuse regulation to reach some minimum quality standards, and then it can be labeled as reclaimed water and it can be used in agriculture. This regulation applies in all member states, but it gives the option that the member state can prohibit the use of reclaimed water. Member states that allow the reclaimed water use can issue, of course, national laws that provide additional requirements or guidance on the implementation of the regulation. And you can see on the right a map that shows which countries allow water use and which do not allow it. For example, in Spain, very recently a royal decree was published to facilitate the implementation of the regulation, and in Greece we are waiting on a new ministerial decision to align with the regulation. Some further information about that. The regulation lays down some minimum requirements for water quality and monitoring for certain parameters like E. coli, BOD, TSS, turbidity, and for the frequency they need to be monitored. According to these values, the water can be classified into one out of 4 classes, and these classes relate to the crop type that is allowed to be irrigated with this water, if the water can be in direct contact with the crop, and which irrigation method can be used. Another requirement is the drafting of a risk management plan that describes the health and environmental risks of the water reuse. There are 11 key elements of the risk management plan in the regulation and is divided in 4 different modules. Finally, the facility that produces and supplies the reclaimed water to the farmers must get a permit, which is granted by the national competent authority of the member state. A final important matter is if these excreta-derived products and the reclaimed water, if they can be used in organic farming. There are 2 regulations about organic farming. The first one, it does not provision allowed inputs for crop irrigations in organic farming. So the use is not stated, but we have found out that it may be accepted by some member states and private certification bodies. So we have addressed a relevant question to the respective directorates generals that are involved in reclaimed water and organic production. The second regulation is about the allowed inputs of fertilizers, soil improvers, and nutrients that can be used in organic farming. So it provides a certain list. Human urine or feces are not listed as input materials, so they cannot be used in organic farming yet. but of course they can be proposed to be included in the list. So concluding, EU and member state legislations are numerous and complex. The EU legislative framework for fertilizing products, the Fertilizing Product Regulation, is not yet ready for such excreta-derived products. So national legislation of which member states must be followed to authorize such product, which is not always straightforward and easy. Water reclamation has a very specific European Union and national legislative framework. However, we should examine if its use as a biofertilizer can be covered. And as a final conclusion, legal regimes do not clearly address excreta-derived activities or products. There are gaps, conflicts, and lack of clarity that we aim to address. So if you want to know more, you can check our scoping review. And don't forget that our final report is coming soon, next year. And you can contact us, of course, with any questions you may have. Thank you very much.